obviously, in light of the reports that we have seen coming out of over 16,000 deaths due to the COVID-19, which is also called the coronavirus, over 340,000 people who are infected by this coronavirus, it is absolutely a good call that our president has made. We can argue about whether or not it's a good call, but I think that a lockdown is definitely something that South Africa needs right now. Of course, President Pumile washo ukuthi we need to sit under a 21-day lockdown, which we get on the show kancane understand ukuthi how will this be efficient for South Africa. Izosiza kanjani ukuthi sikwazi ukuthi decrease the number of new infections daily, as we just heard ukuthi about 153 people were new infections ngomsombuluko. Kusho ukuthi manje sesithola ithuba ukuthi sikhulume kancane nomfowethu uYenfei yena use Wuhan, where he'll get to just explain to us a bit more ukuthi kahle yini basizile. But the president's speech is the most important thing at this moment because key information was shared. And I think, Meredith, it begs us to ask the question, do you agree with the lockdown? 21 days to say nobody moves in South Africa unless you are in essential services, unless you are part of first responders, unless you are in the supply, distribution and production of food and basic goods. Do you think it's a good idea?
I think we need to explain to people to follow it and what needs to make sense.
Yeah, I think a lockdown is quite an important thing right now. And when we started a couple of weeks ago, when the coronavirus outbreak happened, we had a show on Daily Thetha looking at the coronavirus outbreak, trying to understand what was happening in Wuhan. And we do have Yunfei on the line right now, who's going to be able to give us a little bit more information about what are the developments in his country, what is the status right now, but also what did China do so well? Because we've seen countries like Italy that are struggling. The US in itself is struggling to really just contain the virus. Yunfei, good morning. Well, good afternoon on your side.
It's good afternoon on my side and good morning to you. Well, the Wuhan, the city where I'm at the epicenter of the coronavirus outbreak, but certainly the situation has been much better compared with late January. Now, the city has just announced to lift its city lockdown on April the 8th, meaning that starting from April the 8th, the city will open its outbound lane. Now, when the city was being locked down, it was on January 23rd when the city suspended mass transportation, including ferries, including metro stations, and railways and air transportation travel out from the from Wuhan, as well as from the Hubei province. Now the city is under lockdown for basically 2 months. Now, if you say that April the 8th is the date when the lockdown is going to lift it, it will be way more than 2 months, 2 months and a half. So it's a very critical time for the local residents over here because most of them are at home and month-long holiday, and a lot of people haven't been expected that it's a really tough time given the fact that if you stay at home and being competitive, doing competitive work, repetitive work rather, that means a lot of sacrifices have been made among people just to contain the virus, and that's all of the measures taken by the local officials, and that's why the virus got contained in such a short period of time. Now, speaking of, China is facing the issue with import cases because a lot of the people traveling in the country, some of them are virus carriers. So the China official has provided them the places for quarantine. As long as you travel from outside of the country, you can stay on your own charge for 14 consecutive days before you're discharged from the quarantine area. So within the China, there are very few cases are being confirmed daily. And certainly the government have to work with the imported cases.
Yunfei, just to understand, what's the atmosphere on the streets? And just to understand what people are feeling, do you feel people are comfortable now, considering the numbers have dropped?
Well, yes, because the streets are quite quite clear and quiet, and you don't see many people in cars on the street, but still you can see some people. That is because the city is still guaranteeing jobs that is necessary that can ensure the dailyhood of the city. That's why there are still some people coming outside and working, including road cleaners as well as of the staff from the restaurants. And then in order to leave the communities, you have to have your certificate to prove that you're healthy. And basically, that's a certificate that you don't have any contact with people who got infected, as well as you don't have the record of fever symptoms within 14 consecutive days. And with those positions, and you'll be able to leave the community and work for the job that is necessary.
All right. So Yung-Fei, just a quick one. How did you guys deal with the initial fears and to be able to get, your people to embrace the lockdown?
Can you repeat your question? I'm sorry.
How did you deal with the initial fears of the outbreak so that you could get your people to actually embrace the lockdown?
Well, I couldn't listen to you very well, but I guess you're asking about life under quarantine. Basically, I think staying at home, doing repetitive work is certainly a big challenge to a lot of families. Also being cautious about keeping a distance with your family members. Sometimes you have to wear masks. It's really a huge challenge. We visit several people who are live under quarantine. We get a chance, exclusive chance as reporters to visit the communities. A lot of people told me that although their supplies are being supported by the volunteers, repetitive work at home can be a very, very challenging, and also it can put to the mental health problem. So the city also opened mental health online or phone consult services for the people.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much, Yung-Fei. We really appreciate your time. And of course, it's cool again for you too. Joba Sidlapa Naye, China, where the capital has about 11 million people in their population. But also, we are going to be speaking to him a bit later just to continue the conversation and pick up on other things that we need to learn as Umzansi as we go into this life of understanding what's quarantine, what's self-distancing, but also how bad could it get if we do not follow the president's request. All of this after the break. Welcome back to Daily Thetha la SABC 1. Siqhubeka khona nenkulumo yethu namhlanje. Njengoba kulesini ilanga elibalekile eSouth Africa, as it is going to be the start of the 21 days ukuthi sihlele lockdown, and we look at how that will impact the economy. Nakhona futhi sibuye sibheke kancane ukuthi how does it go back to a lokishini, because now you think about people that are at home emakhaya and what do they do during this time, and financially how do we come back from it. But for now, let's quickly find out ukuthi emgaqweni abantu bacabangani.
So buthi namhlanje sithatha nge-coronavirus nokuba iba-affecta kanjani abantu ngoku. Sicela ubuza wena kuqala ika-affecta kanjani?
Well, mina ngathi angakaboni anything engathi engi-affecta ngayo bona. So for mina nje it's just nje into engibona nje la endabeni yenzakala. Otherwise akusinto engathi iyangithusa kangako.
Mina mesisti corona ngi-affecta entweni eziningi because angisakhoni nokuya esipanini yabona.
Ukwenza imali ke mina ke
itshintshe ngokuthi manje ikolo sheshe zavalwa nemali besingakacidi nomsebenzi wethu wesikolo, so bekumele ukuthi like sivale ikolweni.
Bakhuluma ngabantwana besikolo kuphela. What about thina esebenzayo emafemini? Si overcrowded nathi angisho. Why president ingayenzi i-shutdown in time? Iyekela ukusidelay.
Mina as uDJ angisakwazi ukwenza amanye amagig, amanye bapostponile, amanye bawakhanselile, and manje lento imisa umsebenzi wami.
Ngoku sivalile emsebenzini, asikhoni emsebenzini because of this coronavirus.
Njengoba uhlala endlini imini yonke uhlala wenzeni?
as a person othanda ukufunda incwadi ngiyafunda.
Hey my sister ndiyageza njengoba kuchiyo 3 times a day.
Kanti yazi sami sisihlalela endlini, abantwana abaningi abasaphumi nasestradini basaba yona lento lena just because bathi i high and manje ngokuthatha kwami ukubheka ikhuphuka each and every week.
Apha emphakathini ke ngoku ke ukhona utshintsho olubonileyo mhlawumbi kwi-shop iziphaza ezikhoyo okanye i-tavern. Have you seen any changes because khona i-restrictions ezibekiweyo, or do you think that ubomi buyaqhubeka as usual?
Nah, I don't think ubomi buyaqhubeka because today I went a spa. So Spa before ungena, there's people standing at the door, so you have to sanitize first, and then you get in. No more puma, they still have to sanitize you. So that's the only change I've seen. Like I see.
Siswami ku into enzekayo ngoku ilanto ke-business zabantu like zi-shutter down earlier, and ngoku i-business zabantu ziyawa, and loo nto leyo yenza ukuhlupheka ngoku ekuhlaleni.
Abanye abantu bayasaba ukuthi beze ema-saloon. Right now sise-saloon and then the saloon is empty. I was doing something for guy mele ngibhatala deposit, uzongibhatala kanjani deposit, because there are no people. Some people are even afraid of coming out of their houses.
Akukho safe ku-public transport. That is why abantu sibabalekela kude nema-public transport.
Uthini ngabe abantu bangafuna umamela benze lento eyifunwayo?
Abantu mabazinakekele sisi because impilo yabo nyani le until ke sazi uba then ithini indlela eyaphambili yabona.
We as people, we view things in a different way. So omunye uzokutshela ukuthi mina I believe in God, ayikutenzoyenzakala kimi, but then as for me I think we should obey the rules.
There's this friend of mine, yabo. Uthi kimi bekaserenkeni and then bafuna ukumfaka la sanitize. Uthi yezani mara lezinto lezi, yabo. So some people are just naturally ignorant, so there's nothing that we can do about that, yabo.
Akekho omunye ongasicabangela ngaphandle kwethu because it's coronavirus, it's deadly, so we have to be safe.
Bethana siyanicela, you only have one life to live. Make sure that you're preserving it and wenza yonke into exelelweyo uba mawuyenze noyixelelwa uba mawungayenzi so that you stay safe. Sizobonana.
Uyabona ke njengoba uludekazi abona emgaqweni and ezwa ukuthi abantu abasha bathini abanye bathukile, and others are showing a bit of a sense of lack of knowledge, which is very important ukuthi thina nathi lokhu sibakhumbuza abantu about the key elements of the things that they need to do, ensuring why staying home is important, because we do not need a death toll to start in South Africa.
And where there's a lack of education, Melody, that's when the fake news then comes in and actually, closes those gaps. So it's very important that we get as many people educated as possible about this. And I think it's quite interesting because we do have the MEC spokesperson who's going to be talking to us right now to try and get us to a point where we can understand where South Africans, but specifically people living in Gauteng, where they can get their information from, factual information. Because I think that's important. I mean, just listening to that gentleman who said at the taxi rank, you know, so I think it's important, but also the overemphasis on sanitizer is something that we also need to speak about, because we know that South Africa is kind of running out of sanitizer. You can still wash your hands with normal soap as long as you do it for 20 seconds. But I think let's go to the call. We've got Kwara Kekana, who is the spokesperson of MEC Bandile Masuku, who's the MEC of Health in Gauteng. Hello, Mekwara.
Good afternoon. I'm not sure if you can hear me properly.
We hear you. We're very happy with the line.
Okay, so the line is back from my side, but I think what I will attempt to do, based on the context that you've just given, just quickly go into some of the issues that are topical and some of the measures that Gauteng has put in place so that we avoid a back and forth, because I'm struggling to hear. Firstly, let me apologize on behalf of MEC Bandile Masuku. You'd understand that the situation is changing rapidly, and you was called in urgently to come and attend to a special cabinet that will discuss certain issues around Covid-19 in the province. And also thank you for the opportunity that you provided to the Department of Health in Gauteng. Some of the major issues, and people that have been following the conversation around Covid-19 in Gauteng, one of the measures that we've put in place as of the 19th of March, which is which impacts obviously people in the main, is that we've imposed restrictions for visiting hours in facilities. Visiting hours, one, would only be between 12 and 1 in all public health facilities in Gauteng. And there will be only 2 people per patient that are allowed in that 1 hour, and one visitor at a time for no more than 15 minutes. This is to ensure that we limit the amount of people coming into health facilities, but also ease the pressure from health workers themselves with regards to the management of people coming into facilities. Again, what we've done as of 19th of March as well, we've cancelled all elective procedures and surgeries. This means that surgeries that are not, they're not of an emergency.
Okay.
Those have been cancelled. And of course, elective procedures that require high care in nature as well. We have communicated that those need to be rescheduled. What we've additionally done is that we've set up tents outside some of our key facilities. And these separate tents would allow us, in particular the clinicians, to be able to some sort of a triage area, particularly for people that have flu-like symptoms. So we then, assess the symptoms before people go into the health facilities. And there is a particular process that they would follow in the health facility to ensure that if there are any suspected cases or suspected contacts of people that have come in contact with people who are confirmed for COVID-19, they don't end up spreading potentially the virus in the health facility. So those are some of the key measures that we've put in place.
Kwara, just a quick one, and I think a lot of South Africans right now, especially with the lockdown, might not know what is the procedure to follow the moment they feel like they've got symptoms. So can you take us through that in Gauteng? Where do they go to go get tested? Who do they speak to? Who do they call help from?
So the major thing, and this has been ongoing since the outbreak started in South Africa. So of course, there's the NICD hotline, which people can use. But second to that, I think there are, established facilities in Gauteng, and of course, I'm only, inclined to speak on Gauteng health facilities. In Gauteng health facilities, both public and private, that when people feel like, they're developing symptoms that could be potentially related to COVID-19, they then need to contact those facilities. Clinicians that are there would be able to take them through, and also they would need to take through clinicians into confidence around what their symptoms are. And of course, if those are suspicious symptoms, a team would then be dispatched. The team of including the tracers and the tracing teams would be sent out to specific areas to take swabs in order to, for testing purposes. And the main thing, again, we keep on reiterating is that people need to stay in their homes. Those that can self-isolate and self-quarantine need to continuously do that. So that's the most important thing at this stage. But quickly, just in addition to this, in terms of the capability and measures that we've put in Gauteng, there is an app in Gauteng called Impilo. On Impilo, there is a self-screening feature for COVID-19 that people can use. And there's additional educational information on Impilo, the app, which is available on Play Store and iStore for people that can and want to use that. So they can be able to use that for self-screening purposes.
So if you can, what is the number that we can call at any point in Gauteng?
Say that again?
What is the number that we can call? Some people do not have access to apps, but fortunately, basakwazi ukuthi bathathe phone bafone. Iyiphi number mhlawumbe abangayifonela kuyona at any point?
So the NICD hotline that's provided, that's key, and that also helps with because there's also the qualified people that are responding to various issues on that hotline. So the NICD hotline becomes very important. But if people feel like they need to be going to health facilities, we do encourage that just look up, the nearest health facility that's closest to you. And again, Impilo provides for this feature. Impilo is able to provide with your nearest health facility. They can use the app as well to contact your nearest health facility and engage with the clinician about the symptoms that you're exhibiting.
Just a reminder, I just need you to give us the number so that umuntu okhona ekhaya knows what the number they can call.
The NICD hotline, I'm just ready to get it. It's an 0800 number, and I think it's I don't want to, just give me a second.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, but that number also has been widely publicized. But I think at this stage, the most important thing for everyone is to adhere to the regulations that have been gazetted by the Department of Corporate Governance and Traditional Affairs. And in addition to this as well, I think with the issues that the President has outlined in the announcement yesterday in terms of how the lockdown will unfold, I think it's quite important that people adhere to those regulations. You'd remember that we've had a number of people that were giving us difficulty in Gauteng. We've had to get a court order for a church. We've had to get a court order for a family that has refused to go under quarantine. So the WhatsApp number that's available, particularly for South Africans, that's provided by the National Department of Health, is 0600 123 456.
0600 123 456. Sibonga kakhulu for your time.
456.
We appreciate
people can be able to interact with government on that platform.
All right, thank you very much. That was Kwara, who is the spokesperson of MEC Bandile Masuku in the health department in Gauteng.
Yeah.
I think it's quite interesting what she is telling us, because you think it's common knowledge what they're supposed to do once they start feeling that they've got symptoms, but it's not. And unfortunately, her line wasn't very good. There are more questions I would have loved to ask her, so we can get a better understanding. Also, how does Gauteng arm itself? But I think for me, Melody, the most important thing is that the provinces all need to be on the same page.
100%. And also, it's also about availability on social media. But at this point, I still just study careful before we continue our conversation.
Welcome back to Daily Tets. And COVID-19, we're giving you an update, looking at the fact that there's going to be a lockdown tonight. Do you feel ready? Do you actually have all the information? Now, we've heard many myths and stories.
A lot of them.
If you drink hot water, this thing is going to disappear. If listen, we don't want there to be some ambiguous story. We want to be able to give you the facts that you actually need. But the taxi drivers and the passengers to try and get an understanding of in their understanding. Let's go and see what they had to say.
Molweni Mzansi Afrika, igama lami Ndingiludwekazi Ndlazi, and I am at your service. Namhlanje sithetha nge-coronavirus. Every time a virus breaks out okanye there's an outbreak virus ethile, abantu bayoyika because kaloku awazi noba izokufikela nawe na. Namhlanje sesitratweni and sithetha nabona abantu abasebenza nabantu, sifuna ukuba bazikhusela kanjani nabona nabo, sabe sithetha nabo. Xa ucinga wena yintoni i-coronavirus ngoku-understanda kwakho?
Isifo angengikwazi ukusichaza njengamanje, angisazi, ngiyangizwe nje bethi i-coronavirus ethathelanayo like ngokuthimula nangokuxhawulana nomuntu.
Ha ke tsebe bonnete ba taba. Ke utlwile fela hore it's from China. It's very much China, so batho ba tswang China ke bona ba itlisang.
Ya kancane ngiyayazi. Like ngiyayizwa ema-TV lapha emediani bakhuluma ngayo.
Ngathi bathi isifo esiqale ngapha ezweni laseShayina. Kodwa nangapha eSouth Africa ngathi sesinabo noma ngingazi inani lingaki kodwa lona likho liningi.
Andiyazi into enjani. Into engizokucelela ukuthi afanele ungasabi ngoba uma ungasabi uzogcina wenza ama-mistake. Ube brave, ulinde into enye enyezwa kuwo.
Ifikile ngiyayisaba kakhulu mfowethu. Sengithukile nokuthuka. Okungcono ukuthi ningasitshela ukuthi sizivikela kanjani njengoba kunje. Ngoba sazi nasemateksini la sihamba nabantu siyalena le asazi ukuthi kanjani. Kuthiwa kumele sigeze izandla, ngizoyithola lapha indisho yokugeza izandla emotweni.
Izikhona mhlawumbe indlela sotshintsha lusebenza ngazo ngoku ukuze ungafumani nawe le virus?
Cha wesisi okwamanje bingekho indaba kodwa besikhuluma nje singo-driver sisonke ukuthi cha ngazathi i-association kufuneka sitholele ama-glove. Lokho kuvala lapha emlonyeni ke sikwazi ukuthi noma simukela imali le ngoba siyazi ukuthi ngena ndlelani le-corona yakhona.
Akuna la sisithola khona thina la into lezo singageza izandla ngazo. So asazi sizwenza kanjani before bona beza la ngisho ukuthi beze bazosifundisa basitshele nathi sizosithola kuphi uyabona, especially maybe ema-robotini lana sithola abantu abasithengisayo kuzoba easy for thina singakhona ukuthi sibe nazo.
I-gloves zakho ezibuhlele uzisebenzisa kuqala ingekabikho lento ye-coronavirus isafana nezi nale mask uyisebenzisayo zizinto obuvele uhlele uzisebenzisa kudala okanye nifumene ezintsha specifically for a virus?
Nazisafana ikwazi zakudala ama-gloves even ama-mask ikwanganga wakudala and then akho nto etshintshiwe.
Abantu banento ezininzi abazithethayo ezinjengoba ayibafumana abantu abamnyama ihamba ngokukhohlela, uyazikholela ezo zinto?
Kuhle usunzothuna labathu banaliyona bo Bramfisher bo Lokshin kwana, so akitsibi
ayikhethi iphatha bani nobani.
Gijima yonke indawo lento lena. Iza ngesivunguvungu esinzima kakhulu.
Wenziwe njani in the meantime so that inani lingonyuki?
Mabahlale kwizibhedlela and then bathi bafumane unyango and then baphile qabeleni.
Avale abantu abaqhamuka ngali bengangeni ngapha.
Akunanto bazoyenza ngoba into ivelile nje. Into efanele yenziwe ukuthi sithole i-cure ukuthi ipholiswa kanjani.
Uhulumeni athumele abantu njengani bazosibonisa basinokuzane nje ukuthi sibone ukuthi siphephe kulesifo lesi.
Bathi-ke abanolwazi, knowledge is power. Okwangoko masihambise ngebhanti buyele studio.
Uyazibonela nawe wena mbukeli ekhaya ukuthi it's so obvious ukuthi abantu bafuna ulwazi. It's so obvious that abanye abantu feel helpless, and this is why Tina's Corner, as part of the show, to be able to help abantu ukuthi babe nolwazi only enough about how to react, because ngithanda umbuzo of one of the drivers said ukuthi tell us how to protect ourselves. And it's not just about ugeza izandla, it's about personal hygiene, consistently being aware of touching your face and touching your nose.
It's very interesting that has actually come up, Melody, because in my head I'm just thinking about this legal regulation that has been put out to say if you're spreading fake news, it's 6 months of imprisonment or potentially getting a fine. But sometimes people don't know they're spreading fake news because people don't know what the right information is.
WhatsApp chain,
our mothers are thriving right now because they are sending those. But I think it's important that we do use opportunities like this, to be able to speak to people that understand what is actually happening right now. We've got a virologist on the line, Professor Anna Kravis, is going to be able to assist us in dispelling some of those myths and being able to give us the facts about, this COVID-19, what she knows that we can share with you. Professor, good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you so much for joining us, Professor, this morning and giving us an opportunity. I think basically our biggest cry right now is that there's a lot of misinformation that's being spread around. And I think from your position, how would you start probably help guiding us, and how do we stop that without ourselves knowing all the facts?
Okay, I think the most important thing is to define what we are dealing with. And to say that, to get the terminology correct. COVID-19 stands for coronavirus disease, 19 because it was first observed in 2019, and that is the name of the disease. This disease is caused by SA coronavirus 2, okay, and that is the virus. Now, a virus is an infectious organism that infects living cells. It cannot survive outside living cells, and it has to reproduce itself within a living cell.
So, Professor, what would then, sorry, Professor, to come in there, what is the difference between this specific virus and when you've got a flu?
There's not much difference in the sense that they are both viruses, and they both affect the upper respiratory tract. Okay, the difference is that for flu we have a vaccine and we also have some antivirals, whereas for coronavirus we don't have that, and we also haven't been affected by the virus at all, so we haven't got any immunity to the virus.
My question then becomes is that for someone who is at home and sitting and saying, in order for me, what are the most likely qualities that will attract me to getting the virus? For example, is it me always being outside? Does that increase my chances of getting the virus? What environment will spike that?
Okay, just to realize that viruses have to be transmitted from cells to cells or from an organism to an organism in order to survive. And there's different ways in which viruses can be transmitted. We can either have direct contact, as we have, for example, for HIV, which causes AIDS, and that is sexually transmitted, and we need direct contact. But we can also have transmission by indirect contact. Now, ways of indirect contact is by aerosol transmission, where the virus is airborne, but it can survive being dried. Now, the viruses that can be transmitted this way include the measles virus and the chickenpox virus. Now, influenza and the new coronavirus can only be transmitted by droplet transmission. The reason is they cannot survive dehydration. So, droplets transmission can only survive in the air, is airborne for a short distance, 1.5 to 2 meters. And that's why it's important to keep social distancing, to keep 1.5 to 2 meters between individuals, to prevent droplet formation, which comes from coughing, sneezing, or talking. And one way we can do this is to protect our mouths using masks or goggles, and also washing hands, because what happens, these droplets travel in the air and fall onto surfaces. We then go on to touch these surfaces, whether it's a doorknob, whether it's the mouse of our computer, or whether it's our cell phone. Then we pick up this virus with our hands and then go on to touch our faces, our eyes, our nose, or our mouth. And this then enters the body and will cause the infection.
Professor,
and that is why it's very important. Sorry,
Professor, just a quick one. If somebody doesn't have hand sanitizer, we're then told to use antibacterial soap.
Yeah.
But that's a bacteria. So how does it work to kill the virus on your hands if you might have contracted it or touched it?
The important thing is, look, antibacterials are very different to antivirals. The important thing is to have 70% alcohol or more, because that will dehydrate the virus and it will not transmit.
So are we then saying, what I want to understand is, because we know that there is currently a nationwide shortage of hand sanitizer, is soap still good enough?
Well, we need to then go to hand washing. It's been shown that washing with a soap is just as good as using hand sanitizer. So the best option we have if we can't get sanitizer is to wash our hands thoroughly. 20 seconds of washing both the inside of your hands and the outside of your hands.
Thank you so much, Professor. And please do stay on the line, because best we are from the ad break, we continue the conversation and finding out more things. And I mean, there's also some conspiracies that I've heard. 1970, like, hey, whoa, where does that come from? Right, after the break.
Right here on Daily Thetha on SABC 1. We're talking about COVID-19 and giving you an update as to what is currently happening, knowing that a lockdown is literally here at our doorstep. Midnight, everybody in South Africa will be locked down. This is really just so that we can make sure that we do not spread this thing as fast as, whatever it is that's happening. We've seen other countries are quite struggling to be able to contain this. We carry on with our conversation with Professor Anna Kravis, who is a virologist, and she's been giving us very valuable information in terms of what is this thing. And I think that's really important. Sometimes your confidence to be able to, or your confidence in wanting to actually take action comes from knowing what it is. Professor, welcome back to Daily Thetha.
Thank you.
Just a quick one, Professor. Would like to dispel some myths that have been circulating. And I think one of the biggest ones is this idea that the virus, if you drink lemon water, hot lemon water on a day-to-day, you're able to stop yourself from transmitting this. Can you please take us through that?
That's definitely not the case. Because, as we said, the virus needs to replicate in cells, and once it's in cells, there's no ways that you can kill it by taking lemon water or anything hot.
I think another one of them is that Brufen versus paracetamol makes it replicate. We got some, I don't know if it's fake news coming in from Italy to say the reason they had so many deaths was because people were trying to treat it with Brufen instead of treating it with paracetamol.
Okay, originally it was thought that the Brufen increases the number of receptors on the cells, and they become more susceptible to the virus, and that aggravated the disease. However, the World Health Organization has come out with a statement very recently saying that there's no evidence for this, and it's not true. So it should be, if people need to take Brufen, or if their doctors prescribe Brufen, then they can take it.
Okay.
And probably like people that don't get affected, because I'm just trying to think. We said for the past couple of centuries, looking through from 1820, we heard cholera came into sight. People said, okay, 1920, the Spanish flu came, and now all of a sudden 2020, now the speculation with the coronavirus. Are you entertaining this myth, or are you also just writing it off?
It's an oversimplification. Pandemics have been with humans from the beginning of time.
Yeah.
We faced pandemics long ago. I mean, one of the first pandemics that we have any records for occurred in 165 AD, where half of the Roman army was decimated. We don't know by which organism, but decimated. And that was one of the first recorded pandemics. Of course, we had Black Death in the 1346 to 1351, which caused 200 million deaths.
Sure.
Then we had smallpox and, of course, the Spanish flu, which is the most recent one. So pandemics have been around for a long time. We mustn't forget, of course, the pandemics that have scourged our continent, the AIDS pandemic caused by HIV since 1981 has killed between 25 and 35 million people.
Wow.
And the Ebola pandemic that occurred in Guinea, Sierra Leone, and Liberia in 2014, and 11,000 people died. But what is reassuring is that as the years go by, the number of individuals or the death toll is decreasing with time.
And that's why our president has asked for us to say we are having a lockdown and we're pushing people to quarantine and probably, as you mentioned a bit earlier, distancing within. But I want to understand, what does that mean for someone who's sitting at home and who's not used to this? All they know is not to work. I mean, Italy is facing a crisis because people are not staying at home. They're walking their dogs. They're going for a run all of a sudden. How do we then simplify this for a South African context?
Look, it isn't going to be easy, as it hasn't been easy in other countries. Of course, none of us are used to staying at home. But the one thing to remember, it's the only way we can flatten the curve. It's important that we reduce the number of cases so that we don't have people requiring medical attention all at the same time. So we must take heed of our president's call and remain at home. Keep our social distances. It's very important. If you take your dog for a walk, you have to keep your social distance. Keep washing the hands so you don't pick it up even within your family. Wear masks if you have to catch a taxi or be in close contact with people. It's a good idea to wear a mask to prevent getting infected. The other thing to remember is that we have an immune system that protects us. So the immune system will protect us provided it is healthy. Stress immunocompromises. So we must try and keep as relaxed as possible. Try and have good nutrition. Eat fresh fruit where possible, avoid high sugar levels. This virus infects the lungs. So if we can avoid smoking, it's also a good idea because smoking does make us more susceptible to infection with the virus.
Professor, just a quick one. How does a person who already has contracted something like the HIV, how do they prepare for this? You know, how do they protect themselves outside of the regulations or the precautions that have already been suggested?
In other words, an individual who is HIV positive.
Yes, somebody who's HIV positive or who's prone to get bronchitis, who's got asthma, who's had pneumonia before.
Well, one of those individuals will be one of the people who are vulnerable and susceptible. They have to take care and to try and avoid being infected. But if they do get infected, they must seek medical care quite quickly. The first step is to contact their medical doctor. Don't go to hospitals because hospitals are sources of infection. Try and contact your medical practitioner for advice, or otherwise call the NCID, the National Institute of Communicable Diseases, to get advice as to what to do.
And what point does a person go under quarantine? And perhaps maybe if you can give us some context of what quarantine actually looks like.
Yeah.
Okay, quarantine, very early on, it was one of the first things that we recognized with the pandemics early on. As early on as the 14th century, it was recognized that if we isolated people, we could prevent transmission. The word quarantine comes from the term 40 giorno, which means 40 days. With the bubonic plague, the port authorities in Venice knew that if they kept the ships outside at port for 40 days, transmission of bubonic plague did not occur. So quarantine basically means staying away from being in public contact. Now, most of us are going to be practicing self-isolation. That is
Yeah.
different to quarantine. Quarantine is a more formal way where maybe we have to go into institution and be quarantined there. But self-isolation is trying to keep the public health measures that work for coronavirus. Remember, the things that can prevent infections or vaccines and antimicrobial agents can be therapy measures for a viral infection. Now, we don't have these available for us for coronavirus.
Yeah.
What we do have is public health measures. And the public health measures that we have heard on TV or the radio are the ones we should be following religiously.
Yeah.
Not only to protect ourselves, but to also protect the vulnerable individuals in our communities, which include the elderly and, of course, the immunocompromised individuals.
Professor, before we just quickly let you go, I just want to ask, do you think as South Africa we've put the right measures for people to actually follow the lockdown? Because we look at a country like Italy, who struggled to follow the actual request, and they saw themselves now increasing in number of deaths. And you look at a country like China, who actually followed it. They were very strict in their principle, and they were able to achieve it. Is South Africa well positioned for this?
I think it's the one thing between looking at China and looking at Italy, the response was more authoritarian in China, and people had to follow instructions. However, learning from Italy, we mustn't be complacent.
Yeah.
We have to take the measures that are for our good. And we have to be careful. It is our responsibility. The government can only do so much for us. Now it is the citizens' responsibility to try and keep this coronavirus in control.
Thank you so much, Professor. We do appreciate your time and your expertise and just being able to teach us. I mean, I learned quite a lot. Nicoletta, I believe, will share the sentiments with me that I didn't even know. And I'm glad that those conspiracies that were floating around have now been cleared. But when we come back after the break, we'll continue the conversation.
Welcome back to Daily Thetha. If it's our joiner, we are talking a little bit about the coronavirus, and we're getting an understanding of what can we do. We know that the president has called out for a 21-day lockdown, but we don't want South Africans to be feeling helpless and feeling like there's nothing that they can do on their side. The president's already said, wash your hands, keep the hygiene, stay at home, only go out if you really need essential services, essential goods, and if you really do need to get medical care. And I think that has been key to this entire thing. And remember that Wuhan, China, they overcame this. They managed to get themselves to a point where they had no more infections. Obviously, right now, as we stand, we don't know if there are any new infections that they've gotten because people are coming back into the country. So that could potentially, put them in a situation. But they've gotten the control of the actual virus. We're going back again to Yunfei, who is a reporter from China Global Television Network in Wuhan. And we're crossing over to Wuhan right now. It is in the afternoon there. And he's been very, very, very good to us to be able to give us the information and, teach us. And I think for me, the biggest thing, Melody, is trying maybe to understand before we go to him is what has been the economic interventions that China has done. Maybe we can say hello to Wuhan. Yunfei, hello.
Hi there.
How are you doing, Yunfei?
I'm good. I'm good.
Awesome. Thank you for coming back to us. Just a quick one on the economic interventions that China has put in place, especially during the lockdown. Can you tell us some of those?
You're asking me about whether the government will opt for economy or opt for people's health. I mean, for the long time, the Chinese government is always thinking about the long term, thinking about that if the virus don't get contained in a short period of time, there are more and more people infected. Imagine how much money that will spend when thinking about how the country give up running economy, like closing factories, as well as closing restaurants, rather than containing the virus. It's not a problem for just today. It's actually a consideration in the long term. So at the beginning, when the virus outbreaks, it's it's important to get it contained and people are healthy so that the economy can develop further well. I mean, when the epidemic ends or fades, and the country is it's relatively very confident in its economy, because certainly people would like to hand out and purchase more stuff and boost the economy.
Yeah. So just to also ask, how can you advise South Africa on maybe positives and tips as we go into our 21-day lockdown? How can you advise us to keep doing what? What do you think will work better for us as a country?
Okay, I think first of all, don't be panicked, because at the beginning point of the city's lockdown here in Wuhan, we don't see very much panic because the floor are quite efficient. So if you're not going to panic, your system will be great, and it's not easy to get infected. And then do the disinfection procedure carefully, always being cautious and wear your mask. Do disinfection, wash your hands thoroughly, and keep distance with each other, and be respectful for each other, because wearing a mask now in China is the way to present being respectful. So it's basically a strategy to contain any virus that has infection functions.
Yeah.
So anyways, just don't be panic.
Jungfei, just a last question. Do you think we will be able to contain this across the world?
Well, if the community, the international community, follow the same strategy to contain the virus, I trust it will be fade. But if they are using the different strategies, probably it won't get contained in a very short period of time, and that requires international cooperation. Now, China has supported aid to foreign countries. China also appreciate supports from other countries at the beginning stage of the epidemic. Now, at this point, we should call for cooperation and using the same strategy to contain the virus, so that everybody should be united and pass the hard time.
Thank you so much once again on behalf of Daily Thetha and Umzansi for actually giving us your time, reporting live from the streets of Wuhan, where it is in China. And as we get closer to the closing of the show, I just want to add how people to understand in 21 days you can create new habits. In 28 days you can break bad habits. So I started this kati as Umzansi sifunde nathi with how can we improve ourselves, not just from a health factor, but also mentally, because if we are mentally strong, sizokwazi ukuthi senze make sure we don't just panic. We calm down, we look around, and we make correct decisions.
And I think it's quite important for us to all be responsible right now. The type of information we're going to be putting out there, get educated as much as you can. Make sure you're not sending around fake news and misinformation and creating unnecessary panic. But once again, thank you very much, South Africa, and good luck on the lockdown. Let's contain this thing, because we are South Africans.